Allie with Potomac Beads. In this Better Beader episode, we are going to focus on a one-hole bead, the cylinder shape. So I'm going to go over the different types of cylinders and say when to use them, when I would avoid them, and which can be switched out for others. So we are talking all things tubular or cylindrical. And there's a number of different things that you may think when you think of cylinder. Most people, when they think of a bugle bead, are going to think of either a Czech style bugle bead or a Japanese style like the Miyuki bugle. Now the bugles are going to come in multiple different sizes as well as almost different kind of widths, because there is the traditional bugle, which this one here is the matte black AB 3mm. So when you're looking at the 3mm bugle, it's nice and short here in the middle of the Grecian bracelet. And a lot of times that you're in the middle of herringbone or you're working even with the Roman ruins, I have these both out to show the difference of working with a 3mm bugle versus some of the bigger bugles. Most traditional bugles are going to be 3mm or 6mm. I have the matte metallic khaki iris here in the Miyuki bugle as well. One thing that you can keep in mind, if you have a pattern that calls for a 6mm bugle, which is going to be the length, you can often use two 3mm bugles in its place. Likewise, I grabbed here, because we're talking cylinder shape, some Delica beads. The Delica beads are actually cylindrical shaped seed beads. You can pile these 3 high to get a 3mm, 5 high and you get a 6mm approximately. But if you are in a pinch and you need that cylinder shape, keep in mind you can always stack up Delicas. You can stack up the 3mm bugles to get them to be a 6mm bugle. And then we start to kind of have fun in the world of bugles. There's also the Czech bugles that we carry, and these are a 12mm bugle. So they are 12mm long, and these are produced in the Czech Republic. There's also Miyuki's newer shape, which is a slender bugle. So when you're looking at the bugle bead and you see kind of its width, the slender bugle is going to be more slender, so it's even skinnier in nature. One thing that people worry about when looking at the bugle beads, and here's some twisted bugles, also Miyuki, and these are 12mm as well, and here's some twisted bugles that are 6mm when looking at them. So there's all these different bugle-shaped beads. One thing that people are very worried about, like this Russian spiral that has the bugles, as well as some of the different Christmas ball ornaments that feature the bugles, is that they have really sharp edges. This is true because of the way that they are produced, where they are basically extruded and then kind of cut down the line. That oftentimes will create a sharp edge. People are very hesitant to use bugle beads because of this sharp edge. I noticed a sharper edge in the twisted bugles as well as the Czech bugles rather than the Miyuki bugles. The slenders, again, same thing, because they are a cut tube, they have that really cut edge or that sharp edge. Not saying you can never use them, but just be cautious, especially if you're using a non-treated thread, a thermally bonded thread, that you want to be cautious of actually using the bugle beads with just that plain unconditioned cotton thread, because they can kind of wear down and actually break the cord. Another style of bugle that we have, or the kind of tubular shape, is we have the Potomac Crystal Cylinders. Here in the Crystal Grotto bracelet, we have the cylinders, and you can actually use this same exact pattern for your bugles when you're working with them. You can use it also with our Tubelet beads. So I love the shape of bugle beads. And Nathan and I were sitting around and said, okay, you know, bugles are awesome. We like the shape. There's often places where you want to have that length and you want to get kind of that desired look as far as stretching that actual area. But the problem is that they do unfortunately sometimes cut the thread. So Nathan and I started talking about a tube bead that is done through the Czech style and has a rounded edge, and this is the Tubelet bead. The Tubelet bead is going to be thicker than the Czech glass beads, but the Tubelet bead, which is going to measure 6 by 2.8 millimeters, so it's a little bit thicker, but same with that 6 millimeter. Many patterns that call for the Potomac Crystal Cylinder or call for 6 millimeter bugles, this is going to work just fine, even though it's a little bit thicker. The reason we decided to manufacture the tubelet bead was because of that sharp edge in the cylinder-shaped beads. So the cylinders, whether or not, again, you're getting the skinny or the slender bugles, the check twisted bugles, the check bugles, even the 3 and the 6 millimeter, the check shape, because of the tumbling process, has a nice smooth edge. So if you're looking to do a Christmas ball and you say, oh, I need a 6 millimeter bugle, try out the tubelet instead, because you're not running that risk of it cutting the line nearly as much, because it does have that rounded edge. And then a lot of the tubelet beads that we have an awesome coating on them, which again then is going to even protect it more from that sharp edge. Because the check process of producing seed beads is going to be, or producing beads is going to be different than the Japanese or even the Czech process of producing their seed beads. It is a different process, so it allows for that tumbling. Whereas if you would try to tumble most of these here, they're a little bit too thin and they'll break. That's why the tubelet is pretty much as thin as we could make it to have that nice border that it didn't get too thin when you're making it. So there's a lot of options, and the one thing that I wanted to stress when you're talking about cylinder-shaped beads is that there's so many different patterns that include these cylinder-shaped beads. Here's even the Templar pendant kind of working on. So many different patterns include these tube-shaped beads. I'm working on one right now. Keep in mind to try and use something else. So if it calls for a 3 millimeter, try the same bead in a 6 millimeter and see what you get. Here's the exact same pattern that Roman ruins from a 3 millimeter bugle to a 12 millimeter twisted bugle with 11 seed beads versus 3 millimeter cubes. You're going to get a completely different look, but many of the different stitches that feature bugle beads, like the Grecian here with just that herringbone stitch, you can pop a different size in the middle, and that middle is not going to really matter. Same with Roman ruins. You can pop a different size in and try out a different type of bead. So if you were using the traditional 6 millimeter bugle to do some Christmas ball covers, keep in mind to try out some of the tubelets new this year to Potomac Beads as well, for a little change in the look and change in the variety. And then also look at patterns that call for the tubelets, and if you already have some of the bugle beads in the Czech or in the Japanese style, check those out and use them as well. I love the bugle beads because they really do fit in and take up a space that's usually bigger than you need it. So there's sometimes that space that you need just a little bit more around the outer edge for pendants, for designs, and keep in mind that bugle beads work great. Try out again some of those Potomac tubelets. We designed them exactly to be used in these different purposes, especially kind of that cutting thread worry that people have. And even for a lot of people, they're going to be using the bugle beads, the check bugles, even the tubelets for bead embroidery, whether or not it's on a dress or a design. Check out some wedding dresses. You are going to see bugle beads everywhere on the wedding dress. They sparkle, they have a great look, and they're a nice bead to incorporate into your projects. Again, if you are lacking a certain size bugle bead, remember that you may be able to use a smaller one and kind of build multiples up, or even grab some of your cylinder Delica beads and stack those up as well. With all the Better Beader episodes, they are designed to give you more information and to make you a better beader. If you have any comments, questions, or even suggestions for people below, please comment and build up this awesome beading community. As well as if you hit the little bell in the corner, you can subscribe to us to get regular updates from us at PotomacBeads.com as well as PotomacBeads.eu. If you ever need materials, we're happy to ship to you as well. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and remember, try out different shapes of cylinders in place of others in your designs for completely different looks.